without any further ado, I'm going to ask Dr. Rackner to go ahead and join me so you can see that she's a real lady and she's right there. Look, there she is. Yay.
Oh, I'm so excited to be with you, Eric, at all.
Absolutely. This is great. We've got a house full this afternoon. I'm going to clear out some of my these folks here that said that where they're calling in from and make way for some Q&A questions that actually come in here. Samuel, I see that you're from North Carolina. Good to see you. Frank, yep, great to see you here. All right, I think my board is cleared. So, Dr. Rackner, thank you for joining us. I know that your time is precious to you and you're busy and you got a lot of things going on. We're going to get right into this. And so what I'd like for you to do is start off and tell us what did you do as a doctor? Tell us all about that, how you got into medicine and where you are today, just in as quickly as you can do that for us.
Okay, it's a long, twisted story, but I'll try to abbreviate it. So I was in a graduate program when one day I fainted on my way to the bathroom.
Oh,
I
no.
had a medical emergency. I was bleeding internally. And by the time the doctors got into my belly, about half of my blood volume was in my pelvis. So when I said goodbye to my then fiance, I thought it was like the final goodbye. And I was so grateful to actually wake up that I just knew I was going to be a doctor and save other people's lives like my own had been saved. And that's exactly what happened. I became a general surgeon. I was the first woman surgeon on staff at the hospital, and I quickly evolved into a breast cancer surgeon. And I absolutely loved it. So I was in private practice. I had originally joined another surgeon who was in solo private practice. I had originally joined him, but then sort of broke away on my own and ran a solo private practice. So I'm your prospect. I'm the person
Yes.
that you would want to be your client. And part of what I do is I help people understand, like, what happens in the minds of doctors.
Yes.
What do they think about? How do they make decisions? And I help people build business relationships with doctors now.
That's awesome. So, as they would say on TV, you're not just a doctor that plays a doctor on TV. You were
I
really a
am not.
doctor.
I really did it. And if anyone wants their gallbladder out, I'm just
Yeah, there
kidding.
you go. Just make an appointment after the webinar there. There you go. Well, all right. Well, tell us about your story about your billing and kind of where it led you to your new career after being a general surgeon.
All right. So I told you that I had joined another surgeon who was already in private practice. He was interested in sharing call. So we collaborated, and like, I didn't know how things work. Like, how did I actually get paid? And so he explained to me about the coding and the billing. And, then there was, well, how long does it take until I get paid? So I was asking all of these questions to his one employee who did everything but operating. She took care of the scheduling, billing, like everything.
Yeah.
And I kept on asking her questions. And my partner came in one day, and this woman had handed in her resignation. And in retrospect, what we now believe is that she had been embezzling in the
Mm.
practice. And with the questions that I was asking, there was this fear that this was going to be disclosed. And I'll tell you, the idea of embezzlement, of fraud, of, just being victims of financial predators, this is huge for doctors. Like,
Sure.
they really, really worry about this. Okay, so this office person quits, and we know we've got to hire somebody else, right? But how do we send out the bills now? So my partner's wife said, oh, billing, it can't be that hard. Why don't I just take a few hours from my tennis game and I'll
Sure.
come in and do the billing for you? So she came in, and it took her less than a week to figure out, no, this was not
That ain't gonna work.
a solution. So we, continued to try to find somebody else. And in the meanwhile, our cash flow just stopped, right? We had to make an owner investment in order to pay our quarterly taxes.
Mm,
And that was not what I was expecting. I was expecting the cash flow to come from them to me,
that's
not
right.
me to them. So in the meanwhile, we got a temp to do the scheduling, and everyone loved her, especially the little old ladies.
Yes.
And we felt so grateful to find such a compassionate person. We later found out that she was a convicted felon. She had been
Oh, God.
perpetrating Medicare fraud. So, this thing that we thought was so sweet, helping the little
Oh
old
my
ladies
goodness.
fill out their paperwork, was probably just her stealing private information. So we called Medicare and we asked, like, what do we do? And the lady said, well, you probably want to take a look at your billings and collections and see if you notice any irregularities. But like, it was so discombobulated. We didn't really know, like,
Yeah.
how would we even tell,
I was
right?
gonna say, what would you know? It'd be me like me kind of check in and say, are you doing your surgeries right? I wouldn't know what you're
Right.
doing.
Exactly, exactly. So anyway, around that time, I operated at two hospitals. The second hospital was forming a multidisciplinary breast cancer group, and I wanted to be part of it. So I broke away from my partner and I set up a solo private practice at this other hospital. And of course, one of the big questions was, what am I going to do about billing?
Right.
And I had already seen the consequences of billing problems, right? I wanted to be able to know I was going to be able to pay my mortgage.
Sure.
So I decided I am not going to hire an employee to do it, because what happens if the employee quits? What happens if the employee goes on vacation? I decided I was going to outsource my billing. And that was the single decision that probably made the biggest positive impact, not only on that, my cash flow, but my ability to manage my business. Okay, so how
Mhm.
did I find my biller? Well, doctors kind of hang out with each other. So when I was in the doctor's dining room, when I was in the surgeon's lounge, I would ask, hey, do you outsource your billing? And if they said yes, I said, well, who do you outsource to? And when the same name kept on coming up over and over again, that's the person I ultimately wound up hiring, because doctors are influenced by other doctors.
Yeah.
So my guess, Eric, is if you take a look at the really successful ABS people, my guess is that a lot of them um, are like the go-to guy or go-to gal among doctors that kind of hang out together, kind of like I hung out with the other doctors. So the path to success here is to find one doctor who trusts you and is going to boast about you in the doctor's dining room or the surgeon's lounge, or when some other doctor asks them, hey, what do you do about your billing? They just gush about you.
You bet.
All right.
So
So
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, no, go right ahead.
Okay, but here's the deal. Like, I was not a business person, right? I was there in the spirit of service. And I, I noticed some things, like, and I remember this very well. I would do standard procedures. Like when I was on call, I would inevitably do an appendectomy. Okay, I noticed that if it were a Medicaid patient, I would get paid $200.
Hmm.
And if the patient was insured by Blue Cross Blue Shield, I got $2,000.
Oh, wow.
So like,
Oh yeah. There we go.
right? I'm not sure that I would have noticed it had my biller not helped me look at my practice through the eyes of an entrepreneur. Like, we got into conversations like, what do you really enjoy doing? What kinds of cases do you enjoy doing? Well, what happens if you take a certain number of Medicare patients? And every I'm sorry, Medicaid, not Medicare,
Medicaid.
Medicaid
Yep.
patient I took, I lost money.
Right.
Like, I didn't meet my overhead. So she helped me look at all of this in a business-minded way. Like, I wanted to serve, but I also wanted to pay my mortgage.
Of
And so
course.
we identified the cases that I really enjoyed. And so it optimized my personal and professional satisfaction and also my profitability. So that's really how I came to focus on being a breast cancer surgeon, because my passion was there, my excitement was there. And at that time, it was pretty well compensated too.
You bet. Well, this leads me to a question that I'm going to put up here on the screen here. And kind of leads into some of the things that you're doing now. So I'm going to ask you a question because you wrote a book called The Myth of the Rich Doctor. What led you to write that book?
Okay, well, let me continue my story then. So
Okay.
we've gotten to the point where I'm a surgeon in private practice, right? So when things felt kind of tucked in professionally, it was time for me to start my family. I got pregnant. I had a great pregnancy, operated my whole pregnancy, and gave birth to this beautiful baby boy. But he was just like a little different. And when he got to be almost a year old and wasn't talking, I pushed my pediatrician for an evaluation. And he was diagnosed with broad spectrum developmental delay. And I thought, oh my God, what have I done to my son?
Mm,
You know, I operated my whole pregnancy. I exposed him to anesthetic gases. And I just felt this tremendous guilt. And I thought, you know, my number one priority is my son.
right.
So I took a leave of absence from my practice, and I was just going to be a full-time mom. And because of the success of my practice, I was actually in a financial position to be able to do that. So that was a real gift. So I remember one day I was doing a load of clothes, and this lawyer calls me and asks if I would be willing to take a look at a case of medical malpractice as an expert. And I thought to myself, and I remember this, anything but another load of laundry.
Of
So
course.
that one case led to another and another. And for almost a year, I generated revenue being an expert in medical litigation. This
Okay.
is something that more and more doctors are interested in to augment their cash flow because of COVID, and we can go into what happened during COVID. But anyway, after my son was in this special school for
Mhm.
a year, he was retested and he was kicked out because his brain had caught up with all the other kids' brains. He was back on the curve. And so I had this question, well, what am I going to do next? You know, do I just go back to being a surgeon? And I thought, you know, I've got some pretty unique experiences. How many people have been in a life-threatening situation, have been the doctor operating on people in life-threatening situations, been a family caregiver, and seen where care goes way off track?
Right.
And I've got an idea. I am going to start a consulting business, helping doctors and patients collaborate more effectively to get better medical outcomes at a lower cost. I thought I was going to kill it. This was 2000. So you know, I did all the things that you do when you start a business, right? I got a name and so I opened my doors and it was crickets, like nothing was going on. And
Great
so
idea. You just expect everybody to come flooding in.
if you build it, they will come, right?
That's right. That's right.
So I made investments in sales and marketing courses. I became a professional speaker. And every time I went to a class, it was sort of like, I feel kind of like an alien here. Like there is a difference between me and the person like you, Eric, the
Right.
business-minded person, the person who comes from the world of business. And so I was over in Europe speaking. I went to plug in my laptop and had this aha moment because you can't just do that in Europe. Europe is wired differently. So you need an adapter.
Okay.
And that was the moment. It's sort of like, that's it.
Yeah.
I, as a doctor, am wired differently than business-minded people. I need to create this adapter. I need to characterize the differences between the world of business and the world of medicine, and then build a bridge between the two of them. And that's kind of my secret sauce. I've
Yeah.
been using that for over 2 decades now. And the bridge goes both ways, right? I help people who want to build business relationships with doctors. And I also help doctors who want to conduct themselves in the spirit of entrepreneurship. So I've got 2 different brands. Okay, what is the core difference between these 2 worlds? It's the metric by which success is measured. In the world of business, you measure your success by your revenue and your profitability.
Correct.
Like I imagine this ABS meeting, hey, we're doing so well. Our revenue is up 30% and everyone says, yay, okay? In the world of medicine, service, is the metric by which
Yes.
success is measured. Like if you had an orthopedic surgeon come into the doctor's dining room, say, I just met with my CPA. It is so great. Our revenue is up 30%. That orthopedic surgeon would be sent to the psychiatrist. That's like not how doctors talk.
Right.
Okay. So it comes down to this relationship with money. And in 2008, a lot of doctors were struggling. A lot of Americans were struggling, right?
Yes.
So I just got curious. I started, listening to doctors' money stories. And one led to another, And I've interviewed hundreds of doctors about their money stories. And, if you talk with enough people, certain patterns emerge.
Mm-hmm.
And the patterns that I observed were summarized in this book, The Myth of the Rich Doctor. And the bottom line is that doctors don't do well with money. They're
Right.
scared of money. It's the ultimate taboo topic. So if you're on this line, you probably know more about money and wealth building and creating successful businesses than even the smartest doctors you're ever going to serve. It's just who we are.
Sure.
So those interviews led to this first one. The second book is the 9 money mistakes that doctors make.
Right.
I'm just about to release my third one, which is How Doctors Build True Wealth.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's going to be a triad here.
There you go. That's awesome.
Yeah. So bottom line is that doctors are very high earners, right? If you look at the labor of statistics list of, highest paid professions, 10 out of 10 of them are doctors, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But doctors have a hard time translating their high income into true wealth. And
Correct.
that's kind of what the books are about.
Yeah.
Listen, if you are doing a doctor's billing, you are collecting a percentage of what they earn. So you can take the momentum of their high earning, and
Yes.
it's kind of like a sailboat sending you into
Yes.
your own successful business and your own wealth.
Well, one of the quotes, I'm going to bring this up because one of the quotes that you do have in the book, that you say that physicians in private practice can walk away on an average of 30% of their incomes. How is that?
Yeah. So this say that insurance companies are greedy and they want to put their money to work making money.
Sure.
And the way that they do that is to reject insurance claims, even valid insurance claims. Now, I recognize that that is a cynic saying that, right?
Yep.
But there's a lot of evidence to support this cynical truth. Okay. When I was running my own practice, my CPA said, Vicki, this is great news. You need a tax write-off. We'll just write off that 30%.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's one way to go, but doesn't it make more sense to collect more of that?
Yeah.
But that was never given to me really as an option. So that's not a very business-minded thing to do. And it's kind of like, doctors have these buckets of bucks, right? And they've got these huge holes. And one of them is rejected insurance claims, especially if you've got like an employee sending out your bills.
Yes.
And another one is taxes, by the way. A lot of doctors pay way over what they're legally and ethically obligated to pay. So, imagine what would happen if you could just patch these holes in your buckets of bucks. It makes it much, much easier to build wealth.
You bet. And on that same thought, if doctors realize that they're losing 25-30% of their income, the only way that they think they can make that up is I got to start seeing more patients.
Right.
Then you lose your work-life balance very fast. And then you've even talked on some other webinars of doctors, the whole doctor burnout throughout America. And that's what's happening. So what we're able to do, and the way that I like to put this, if the folks that are on the call today and they become a good medical billing company, you are offering your entire community a better health resource, because you're taking your local physicians, you're taking off of their plate this 30% of money that they're losing. You're getting it down to, like you said, 2 to 5%, which means they don't have to see 20 to 25% more people to make up that difference. So the people that are going to the doctor are getting all of the doctor's attention. So it really does come all the way around in all aspects of it.
It does. So, Eric, can we drill down on this burnout issue? Would that be
Yes,
okay?
please. Yeah, go right ahead. I mean, I know it's a passion of yours.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so back way before COVID,
Mhm.
it was recognized that physicians were burnt out, and it was called an epidemic back
Yeah,
in 2016, 2017,
right.
where, 35% of physicians were reported to be burned out. Like they didn't want to go to work, they didn't want to see more patients, they just wanted to stay home in bed.
Yeah.
All right. So that number crept up 2018, 2019. It got up to 40% in 2019. And this was considered a crisis. Almost half of physicians had been burned out that year. Okay.
Mhm.
Then the pandemic hit, right?
Yes. Yep.
And, I am a surgeon. Every time I operated on a breast cancer patient, she was on the ventilator, right?
Hmm.
But remember back then, what we were concerned about is, were we going to have enough ventilators for
Hmm.
all the sick people with COVID? And so hospitals and clinics decided, you know what, we are going to cut back on our elective cases. We're just going to make sure these ventilators are available for the COVID patients. Well, these elective cases are the engines that drive profitability of hospitals, clinics,
Sure.
and individual physicians. So there are these high earning physicians who overnight saw their income get cut by 80, 90%. Like, I'm a fellow of the American College of Surgeons, and they offered a webinar about what to do before you think about filing for bankruptcy.
Oh, my word.
So, we've got these stressed doctors already. Then there is this situation nobody ever imagined. Like in business, we understand business cycles. We understand that there's going to be some good years and some bad years, but no doctor ever imagined that their income would do anything but go up year after year.
Sure.
So this led to more burnout. By 2023, over 60% of physicians said that they had experienced burnout the previous year. It's finally peaked and it's starting to come down now. But when these burned out doctors were asked, what do you need to turn around the burnout? They said, more money.
Yeah.
And by that, many of them thought that meant, I need to see more patients.
Yeah.
Like not seeing the obvious. Well, how about if I just get paid
Paid.
for what
Yeah.
I've already done? How
You
about
bet.
if I figure out how to do my taxes in a smarter way? So the solution is just kind of right there under their nose. But like so many people, when you're in the thick of it and you've painted yourself into a corner, you don't look around and see the obvious solution.
Well, that's why I put your quote up here. The physician's pain is your opportunity. And you don't mean that in a bad way. You're just saying you know it from the doctor's standpoint that if they're attending webinars to try to figure out how to possibly go through a bankruptcy, and then they're being asked questions, well, what will solve your problem? Well, I need to make more money. This is where those that are on the call today, and folks, you're hearing the heart cry of the doctors throughout the United States. So no matter where you're located in the United States, there is a doctor that has gone through what Dr. Rackner has been talking about.
Right. And I mean, no doctor is ever going to go on a talk show and talk about this, right? Because
No.
doctors are too proud. You're
Right.
getting the real insider truth.
Yeah, you're getting this inside scoop. You bet.
Yeah, exactly. And doctors are too proud to even talk to each other about it. But, sometimes as I look at doctors, I'm reminded of this story about this person who went out boating. Like he was like really, really terrified of the water. He was a really bad swimmer.
Yeah.
And somehow he wound up overboard. And so he's just like flailing away, thinking he's going to drown. And the people in the boat say, just stand up. I mean, he was in water that was only this deep. All he
Yeah.
needed to do was just touch ground and he was going to be fine.
Yeah.
And, like managing your cash flow appropriately is just like, you're not going to drown. Just stand up.
Yeah.
It's going to be
Absolutely.
okay.
Well, here it leads to another question here. And this is a big question that a lot of people here, they haven't asked here, but I've heard them ask in the past. Doesn't the doctor already have a billing staff? You've kind of alluded to that a little bit early on in your story, but I mean, this is part of the doctor's problem, having billing inside of their clinic.
Yeah, yeah. So there are a number of problems that I could see from my own perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I first went into practice with my then partner, his one employee was not going to say, we've got a serious problem. We've got a 30% rejection rate, because that would make her look bad, right?
Correct.
And
you know what? Let that sink into everybody that's just heard that. So if you're a medical billing staff person, you never want to go to your boss to tell them we're really sinking over here because my job would be on the line. Okay.
right, it would like be her fault.
Yeah.
So why don't more doctors know about this high rejection rate? It's because their employee who's doing this, often for minimum wage, doesn't want to get fired.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Yes.
So that is one problem. The second problem is, what if this person quits or, embezzles? Doctors are really worried about having control. They think, okay, if I can just hire the right person, I'm going to have control. But how much control is it really if you have one person sending out the bills, collecting the cash, doing the settlements? Like, it's like he was giving her the keys to the practice.
Right.
And that's how you lose control. You gain control by putting in checks and balances, right?
You bet.
And then the last problem was that there was really no incentive for an employee to really do better. Right. I mean, the doctor's probably earning 10 times as much as this person. And I just imagine being in a situation where somebody says, well, he's already making 10 times as much as I do. I mean,
Right.
he doesn't need much more than that. But when I outsourced my billing, I knew that when I did better, my outsourced biller did better.
Sure.
So we had the same incentives. We were on the same team, playing the same game. So like, it just made sense to me that the way I was going to have most control, the way I was going to be able to position myself for success, was to outsource. And in the end, it turned out being cheaper too.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Because I think what sometimes we tend to forget, being a medical billing company, maybe even starting out, is not only do I got to pay the individual a salary, which a lot of times almost equals what it would cost if the doctor just outsourced it, but then, they got to pay for all their software, and they've got to pay for all the other things that go along with it. There's a multitude of things when you got a full-time employee there in the practice, and they're possibly losing money there. So what I'm saying about this is that what you're going to learn here through ABS, you're going to learn how to do what's called a practice analysis. And so when there are doctors that do have their own medical billing staff, there are certain numbers that you're going to be able to plug in and then show that doctor, bottom line, okay, this is what it's costing you to have someone in-house doing your billing versus having it outsourced. to us. So that's a great comparison. Um,
Okay. But Eric, there is another really important point.
sure.
It's not just doctors who are burned out. It's nurses, it's medical
Yes.
staff, and we are dealing with shortages of
Yes.
staff.
Yeah.
So can a doctor even find a good person to do in-house
Absolutely.
billing?
Yeah. And then trust them. I mean, that is probably, I can imagine a doctor trying to run a practice and then try to figure out how to hire the right billing person in their staff. Hopefully that they may stay and not have to do all that all again, because the biller gets in there and goes, wow, this doctor's really in a mess and I don't want that to fall on me, and they end up leaving. Those stories happen quite often, quite often. Well, so hopefully that helped answer the question. What about doctors doing their own billing in their office? I got another question here. What led you and Patrick to write this book, The New Thriving Medical Practice?
Well, I'm just chuckling because back then, when we were dealing with it, we were responding to the epidemic of burnout, which was
Yes,
half what it is today.
of course.
And so this was really about how to run a practice on your own terms. And, the subtitle kind of says it all. And we did retitle this, but how to get off the hamster wheel, work smarter, not harder, generate more revenue, and enjoy greater career satisfaction. That's really what the book is about.
You bet. And what the reason I'm pulling this back up here is because as an ABS business owner, they are the ones that actually write the forward to the book. Now, I don't know if that was your thought or if that was Patrick's thought, but man, what an ingenious thing this was.
Okay, so what I saw with The Myth of the Rich Doctor,
Yep.
doctors absolutely loved this book.
Yep.
Wanted to read it. And here I am helping people build business relationships with doctors. I know something magical happens when your name is on the cover of a book, when you are in the book. And I realized, well, what if I let people create a forward and an afterward, so their name would be on the cover with mine. They were underneath my veil of credibility, and you can Google that to sort of see what you see.
Yeah.
And that was huge. That was like the single best marketing idea I ever came up with.
You bet.
And I personally charged $10,000 for my financial advisors to create this custom version of the book. How much do you guys charge, Eric?
Well, it actually comes with their investment.
Okay, so zero, $10,000. Okay.
Yeah. It comes with their investment, and it's what's incredible is it kind of does what you mentioned earlier, that doctors listen to other doctors, and because your name is on there, and then they are the ones that wrote the forward. It's so funny that even psychologically, we all have our psychological things that cause us to do things. What causes a doctor to read the book is that it was written by a doctor, and then they start getting into it, and then they call the person that actually gave them the book, which would be an ABS business owner, and they go, hey, I just got through reading your book. It's so funny how it changes automatically, but because of an ABS business owner being a part of your book, that automatically brings credibility to that ABS business owner.
And you know what? Even if the doctor doesn't read the book, you still get the value because of the credibility. You're seen as an expert.
You bet.
This was really magical. And, I had how could I be so stupid? Why didn't I think of that earlier?
Well, one of the things that what we've got here is that you can actually help new business owners here at American Business Systems with these books, and then obviously with a letter of introduction that I believe either you or Patrick or somebody came up with, said, hey, okay, you did it again. Okay. Said, hey, how about if I write a letter of introduction to that doctor from me, from you, introducing this medical billing company, because it kind of goes back to what you said again earlier when you went around to the doctor's lounge there at the hospital, and you're going, who does anybody use to do the billing? And these doctors kept saying, well, I use this person, I use this person. Well, here you've got Dr. Vicki Rackner saying, this is the person that I use, and also here's a book from me, and they're the ones that wrote the forward to the book.
Right, exactly. So like if you send, and I don't mean to offend anyone, okay? I'm just like telling you how it is.
Yes.
So I generally had just a single employee, right? My gatekeeper. And my gatekeeper actually had a pretty hard job. Her job was to keep me happy. And so I would be happy if I only got the messages like I wanted to get.
Yes.
Everyone wanted my time. Everyone wanted to say something to me, right?
Yep.
So I would get mad if we let a salesperson through, like a pharmaceutical sales rep. I also got mad if another doctor wanted to talk to me and that call got screened out, right?
Yes.
So it was very clear. There was a really narrow window about what I wanted. Now, a letter sent from somebody who runs a billing company might have great value, but my offensive line, if you will, would have screened that out.
Yes.
Because of my own rules.
Yes.
But she was not going to screen out a letter that came from a doctor.
Correct.
It's kind of a ninja way
yes.
of getting a message.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, because there are people on here today that would probably say, I don't know if I can do this. I can probably do the medical billing side of it, but actually going out there and building a business and marketing myself, that seems a little tough. But this is brilliant, because this kind of takes out me having to go cold call on doctors. There's no cold calling in this. I remember that during the pandemic, one of our ABS business owners handed out 3 books during the pandemic. Ended up getting all 3 of those doctors as billing clients. It's amazing. It's just amazing. So I know that we got about 15 minutes here, and I put up here one question, and then we're going to get into some top reasons from you, and I'm going to share those with you right now, or here in just a minute. But let's kind of end with this: why entrepreneurship for these people over here? We've been talking about doctors now. Let's kind of shift a little bit over to these folks that are here that are on the webinar.
Okay. So I personally am a serial entrepreneur. And here's how I define entrepreneur. It's somebody who has connected the value that they deliver with what they get paid,
Sure.
right? And many doctors are not entrepreneurs. I'll do the appendectomy. I'm not even going to take a look and see how much I get paid for it.
Yeah.
So an entrepreneur understands value. They understand what their clients want, the value that they want, and what it's worth to them. So entrepreneurship is what makes America great. This is how wealth is built. So I had to do a lot of work personally to make this mindset shift to entrepreneurship.
Yes.
But I'm so glad that I did, because of all of the rewards on the other side. And in my opinion, you can be an employee and still have the mind of an entrepreneur, because your business is you Inc.
Yes.
So anyway, entrepreneurship is very, very critical to the American economy, and it requires some special skills. And I think probably the most important skill is learning how to manage our human brains. And,
absolutely.
Deal with things like perfectionism and people pleasing and all of those things that can really stand in our way. So entrepreneurship is important.
So why ABS then? Let's kind of just wrap it up here to kind of go there. I'm sure there's other businesses out there. I mean, they could go start a sandwich shop. They could find another type of franchise or business opportunity. There might be 1 or 2 other types of similar businesses like ABS that do medical billing, but you from your position in entrepreneurship, why ABS?
Okay, so I've launched a bunch of businesses that have failed. And it's sort of like I could read a book about how to not be an entrepreneur. So I created one business for family caregivers. Like I'm deeply committed to family caregivers. They're the unpaid extension of the healthcare system. I
Yep.
wrote a book about it. I couldn't make a living at it because caregivers don't have extra money to hand over.
Yes.
So, you need value that you really believe in, but is there also somebody who's going to pay for your services or products? And, especially during the pandemic, there were lists of professions that were going to do well.
Yeah.
There were going to be buyers. And it was like shipping and healthcare.
Yep.
And then supply chain people. And, we will always need doctors. Blockbuster Video went under.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen with healthcare professionals. We're always going to need them. They will always need to get paid. So you've got like this secure market, like it's a smart investment. We've got evidence that this is a growing business and got evidence that people have been successful with it. Okay, check. So that's important. You've actually got a market. Next, there's a path to success.
Yes.
Like it's not like ABS says, okay, well, here you go. Here's your software. Here's how you work the software. No, they tell you, here's how to build the business. Here's how to get clients. And they lay it all out. And I don't mean to be humble, but I think like I'm your secret weapon.
Yeah,
like,
no doubt.
You are when you are in the ABS family, you are under my veil of credibility because of all of this content that I've created and my presence. So like, you're not out there alone. Just imagine going out with me. Like you're by my side, we're going out together because that's the experience that you have with ABS. And then the third thing that I have learned, this has actually been very painful, is that there are people out there who are sociopaths. Yeah. Like they'll sell a good story, but there's no integrity behind it. I actually read a really great book called Sociopath, written by a sociopath herself. It's boy. How she lives. Yeah. And, you meet enough people and what you realize is that maybe you're not great at knowing who you can trust and who you can't trust. This is what doctors deal with all the time. But I can tell you that, the day I met Patrick Phillips was really a day that changed my life.
Yes.
We had this relationship. Do you know how long the relationship is, Eric? Because I haven't gone back to check. It's been over a decade.
I was going to say at least 10 years.
Yeah, it's been over a decade.
Yeah.
And what experience has shown me is that this is an organization of integrity.
Yeah.
Like, these are people who do what they say they will do. And one of the most important things, whatever business you decide to go into, is choose your partners carefully.
Yes.
Because their reputation gets reflected on yours. And it's just been such an honor and a delight to work with ABS and do anything that I can to support the success of the ABS owners.
Yeah, that's, I have to say that too. And so many people have said the same thing about Patrick. You meet somebody like that, it's a kind of a once in a lifetime type of person that you meet, because there were such integrity in there, and then the integrity that flows out of that into Adam, the rest of the team here, the support team, your support, this is, so thank you for what you do for here at ABS, and just the coaching. And, I look back to when the last time you and I did a webinar, it was in December. I thought, I can't believe it's gone. We went that long without doing a webinar with each other. But, you do so much back behind the scenes where you're sending out the letters, you're helping other, you're coaching some people along the way, and just what an incredible person that you are. And so we appreciate everything that you have done for ABS, and maintaining that integrity. So I'm going to open up real quickly to see if I know, Frank, I got your question. I'm going to save your question towards the last because I can deal with that question. But if anybody's got a question specifically for Dr. Rackner, we've got about 7 minutes before the top of the hour. If anybody has any specific questions for Dr. Rackner, other than that, I'm going to put it up here, the little Q&A box right there. So if you got any questions for Dr. Rackner, put them up there. You have held everybody's attention. I'm telling you, it's like, typically I get a lot of questions. I mean, you must be hitting on all the answers to everybody. So I know that your time is valuable. I've got to do a little bit of a wrap up here towards the end, but why don't you share, your kind of closing statements, and then there is one person that wrote something here. But go ahead and kind of give your closing statements here, Dr. Rackner, and then we might be able to come back and answer a couple of these questions here.
All right. Well, first of all, I just really wanted to honor you for thinking about this future self that you would like to build and exploring opportunities. It takes real courage to do that. So I honor you for even exploring it. I honor you for being here to sort of get more evidence to help you make a really informed decision. And I don't want to do a commercial, right?
Yeah.
But what I do want to say is that there are an awful lot of physicians, smart physicians, dedicated physicians, who are suffering in silence, largely because of their relationship with money. And the people who help these doctors with their cash flow, they are often the transformational agent, the person that helps turn doctors' lives around. Doctors are committing suicide. And a lot of the motivation behind that is money. Yeah. So a lot of doctors are feeling stuck. They don't see options. So part of the reason I'm so enthusiastic about supporting the ABS owners is because I know that when they get a new doctor client, that means that there is a doctor out there who's getting excited about practicing medicine again, who's deciding, well, maybe I don't really need to retire when I'm 50. Maybe I can work a little longer. Maybe I can build more wealth and invest more wealth in the community. Yeah. So you are making a difference here. This is not just like a way to make money. This is a way of making an impact.
You couldn't have said it any better. Dr. Rackner, I'm going to take care of all these other questions here at the end. I'm going to tell you, thank you for your time. We have got to do this much sooner than 6 months. we're going to try to do this at least quarterly, because your interviews are so impactful. Because again, they hear from me weekly. I talk about the topics. I talk about our training. I talk about marketing and how we help them get their first doctor, and obviously how much money that they can make. And then we'll do splashes of interviews with business owners, and we hear their struggle and how they struggled in the beginning, but how they became successful. But it's nothing like having someone that's been there. You've struggled as a doctor trying to get paid. You understand the issues, and then now you're on this side of it where you're helping other doctors kind of get some things going. And as you said, you're kind of the ninja secret sauce behind ABS to help these people get their first client. They got to take advantage of it. I'm telling you. And like you said, the cost that you charge, financial advisors to be a part of the Myth of the Rich Doctor book, being a part of the book here with the New Thriving Medical Practice actually comes with their investment. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for the invitation. Thank you, everyone who invested your most precious asset, your time here, listening to me. Doctors need you.
There you go. Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Rackner. I'm going to wrap this up for them this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes, ma'am. Bye-bye.